So my name's Olivia and I'm Cornforth. I'll be delivering the training today. I'm a training consultant for Optimum, and we're just going to run through some core functionality as well as how to use it for delivering training. So a little bit of housekeeping before we start. As you all have, if you could keep your videos turned off throughout the call, there might be a fair few of us on the call at one point, so it might start to get a bit slow. We're all turning on our videos, we're all working from home rather than using our organisation Wi-Fi. Could you please also make sure your microphone is on mute unless you have a question when we stop to have question times. Otherwise it just causes a lot of background noise and can be quite distracting. If you have any questions, please post them through the meeting chats. So if I just open that up again, if you wiggle your mouse on the screen, you get this little show conversation icon. If I turn mine off and turn it back on. Please feel free to write questions throughout the session, pop them in here, and if we get a chance, we'll have a look at all those questions. If not, we'll just get back to you after the session. Again, live captions, if you need your live captions on, you can turn those on as well. Again, from the main bar of the call, if you click more actions, you've got turn live captions on there as well. So the course is using Microsoft Teams, so we'll run through how we can best utilize it. We'll go over some core functionality. There's quite a lot to Teams, and we won't be able to cover absolutely everything in this hour, but we'll cover enough to get everyone started, as well as some good tips and tricks. So I will be demonstrating some of these features, and of course the lesson's about an hour long. Could I also ask that if possible you could turn off or move your phones out of reach, maybe minimize your email, close your web browser, just so that we can try and reduce the number of distractions available to us. So as I mentioned, our goal for this session is to look at how we can communicate effectively while working remotely and using Teams to aid that. And then also looking to how we can use Teams to facilitate remote training. So how we can get the most out of our virtual classrooms and looking at some tips and tricks. So to start off with, I just want to start off with what is Teams. I'm sure most of you are aware or heard of Teams. Teams is essentially a collaboration tool. So it incorporates things like instant messaging, video calling, conference calling, all those kind of tools that you might be familiar with Skype if you use Skype. But it also incorporates a new project workspace. So this is where you can organize your team, organize content, share information, share knowledge, and it's very easy and accessible. So we'll have a look at that as we go through the course. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up Teams and we're going to have a little demonstration of some of the core features. I'm going to use our call for this demonstration, so I'm just going to pop in here. Perfect. Okay. I will routinely just check this chat. We've also got a colleague on the call who's going to be answering any questions if he can as we go. So the first feature we're going to have a look at is our chat tab. Now down the left hand side here we've got different tabs that take us to different parts of Teams, and we'll work our way through these through the course. So if I just click on chat. Okay, so on the left hand side I have all my, I'm just going to put that there. On the left hand side I have all my recent chats. So these are my recent conversations either with an individual, like here with Beth, part of a group where I've got Tanya and Beth in this group, and then any meeting chat as well. So this meeting has its own chat bar. If I want to send a message to someone in my recents, I just select their name, and then I can type a message at the bottom here. Just send it and then it goes off. So very similar to Skype. You've got a lot of different tools along the bottom here, GIFs, stickers that you can have a play about with. We've had a little bit of fun playing around with these over the last few days. So that's your recent. You can also have a look at your contacts. So if I select contacts here, our organisation have set Teams up so it pulls over from our Skype and our Outlook contacts, but how your contacts are displayed here really does vary on how your organisation have set up Teams. but you have got contacts displayed here. You can also filter this screen as well. So if I go back to recent, let's say I've got a long list of conversations here, and I'm trying to find someone that either I can't find in the list or is someone I haven't messaged before. I can either click on the new chat icon here along the top, the pen and paper icon, and then I can just search for the person that I'd like to talk to, select the name, and then if we have got previous history and previous conversation, that is displayed here. And like I did before, just use the message box to send a message. Or alternatively, I can use this filter button here. So if I click on the filter, having known that I have messaged Beth before, I could type in Beth's name, and then any conversation that I've had with her, so any individual, part of a team or part of a meeting, is populated here. And again, I can just select that conversation to jump right into that. I also have this more options button here along the top. So again, this is quite handy to filter this screen. I can go and have a look at all my unread messages, have a look at my meetings, or wherever I've muted something. If I select that one as an example, here's the one meeting I've muted, so I can go in and have a look at that chat. And to remove that, I just click remove. So once we've found the chat and we've started messaging, we might want to have a call with this individual or small group. So along the top here to the right hand side, we've got our video call button. We can start an audio call. We could share our desktop, so if we're working on a presentation together, might want to share my desktop and go through that. And I can also add participants to this conversation. So if I clicked on this icon here, let's say I wanted to add Stu, I could click add people, search for Stu, select his name, click add, and then it'll open up a brand new chat with me and Stu's been added to this group now. So you can see these messages. Another thing that's quite useful is you can actually mute and leave groups. So let's say this meeting here, there's a lot of messages coming through that aren't relevant to me anymore. I could decide to mute that. And in order to do that, I click on the more options. And you can see here a wide variety of actions, and I can obviously mute that from here. And the same with this group. Let's say I no longer want to be part of Teams testing. Click on more options, and this time I can actually leave the group altogether, as well as mute it or hide. So that's some key features of chat. Again, if you use Skype quite a bit, this will probably be quite familiar to you. The next thing we're going to have a look at is the actual call functionality. So I'm not going to start a call from here because it will actually place the call I'm on right now on hold. So I'm just going to dive straight into our call. And I'll just use this one as a demonstration. So if I had pressed the video call button from the chat pane, it would take me to a holding page, which most of you probably went through today, and that just allows me to define my video microphone settings before I actually join the call. And then once I click join, I'm taken to this page. So I'm actually on the call, and I have this bar along the bottom here. So from here I can also define certain settings. So I've got my camera. Obviously if I select this now, because my camera's on, that's going to turn it off. I have my microphone, so this is where I mute myself. If I'm not participating in the conversation, it's typically best practice to just put that on mute. And then because I'm already sharing, this says stop sharing, but you'll notice this is where you would come to share items to the presentation. We've set up these meetings so that you can't present, so there might be certain features as I go through, like the whiteboard, which you won't have available in this call, but in calls that you create will be available. When you share, you can either share your whole desktop or you can share an individual window. And the window is quite handy if, let's say, you're conducting a presentation and you don't want other documents or a Word document, whatever it might be, to be visible to everyone on the call. So if you share the particular window, they'll only ever see whatever's in that presentation or window. Once you have started sharing, you have a bar appear along the top here. And this just tells me that I'm obviously presenting. and also allows me to give control to other presenters in the meeting. So I can pass control to Stu here. I can stop presenting from here as well, and I can also pin this bar so it always appears on my screen. And I'm just going to unpin that. So moving along, we have more actions, and there's some really handy features that can be found here. So the first one we'll have a look at is show device settings. If I select this icon, this opens up the side pane here, device settings, and from here I can just check to make sure that my headset is correctly allocated. If I was using PC mic and speakers and I've got a headset plugged in, I might be experiencing some audio issues, so I'd want to make sure that it does connect to my headset. Normally when I've conducted training and delegates are experiencing audio issues, 9 times out of 10 it's because they've got PC mic speakers connected rather than their headset. So if you are doing any training or any meetings and people are experiencing issues, this is a great place to come and just make sure it's set up correctly. And again, you've got your speaker and microphone audio there as well. If I go back into more actions, I've also got full screen. So again, if you're delivering training, you might encourage the participants to enter this. It just makes it a lot more viewable and easy to follow along. I have blur my background. So if I click on this one right now, you should see that my background's now blurred out. And again, that's quite good, especially as we're all working from home a lot now. It's a great way just to hide anything you've got in your background, any posters, anything like that. You can just pop that on. I briefly showed you this at the beginning of the call, but you have turn on live captions. And this is really handy if anyone's hard of hearing or you have any sort of accessibility needs, and that can be really handy to turn that on and just follow along the captions as you go. So it should just pop up. Okay, it can take a bit of time to start working. There we go. So you can see that I'm talking and the captions are populating here. So I'm just going to turn that off. You have start recording, so you can record from within Teams directly itself. If you record this, it will only ever show what you share to the screen, not necessarily what you pop up in a Word document and things like that. So that is something to be mindful of. And there's basically some key functionality there. Moving along, we also have the chat pane. Again, I briefly showed this at the beginning. But if I select show chat, here if anyone has any questions, and please do, if you do have any questions, populate them in here. Just type the message along the bottom. Again, you can send smileys, emojis, GIFs, whatever it might be, and you can just use it like the normal chat. We then also have show participants. So I select this one. From here we can see who's currently in the meeting. And I can also invite more people to this meeting. So if I type Stu, search for my contacts, select him from the list, and then I can add him to that call. So that's a nice handy feature as well. If we're missing someone that needs to be in here, it'll dial out to them. You can also mute people from here. You have the mute all functionality here. I'll try that. And that just mutes everybody. It's a bit hit and miss. Sometimes it fully works, sometimes it doesn't. So it's still advisable to ask everyone to mute themselves to make sure that it's working effectively. And then lastly, we have the hang up symbol. So I know it's quite obvious, but please make sure that you do hang up after every call. Sometimes it's quite easy in Teams to navigate outside of the call, like I am here. And if I go back in, you can it's quite easy to see that you're not in a call. If that's minimized, it just looks like you're using Teams normally, when in fact you're still on the call. So do make sure that you hang up at the end of each call by using that. If the bar disappears, which it will do any second now, just wiggle your mouse to bring the bar back on. If your bar isn't disappearing, sometimes you just need to click the screen for the first time and then it will disappear. So that's the core functionality within the calling features. The next thing we're going to have a look at is our calendar. So you may or may not have the calendar present depending how your organization has set up Teams. And our organisation have set it up so that it links to our Outlook calendar. Again, this is just dependent on your own internal policies within your organisation. So I can see both Teams meetings and then just ordinary catch-up meetings here that aren't video conferencing. So if I wanted to join this meeting, like most of you would have done today, as you approach the meeting, it comes up with join, so you can click it from there. Alternatively, you can just select the meeting, and along the top right, you have a join button there as well. Just going to close that. You also can create meetings from Teams itself as well. A couple of different ways. As with most things in Microsoft products, there's many ways to do the same thing. I can either select the space on the day and time that I want, so let's say between 2:30 and 3:30 on Friday, and that will open up a new meeting window. Close that. Or I can just click the new meeting button along the top here. So I would add in my title as you normally would in an Outlook meeting, adding my participants, however many I've got, checking my dates and times. What you can do is when we have a look at the Teams functionality a bit later on, you can add a particular channel to the invite. So rather than adding everyone individually, you can add a whole channel, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. So if you've got a project channel and you just want to add everyone in for a catch-up, that's nice and quick. And then obviously just sending the message as you would. So you can change the time zone here. So if you work with a lot of international customers or you've got a lot of international offices, this can be quite handy to see what time zone you're working in. And you also have your scheduling assistant. Again, just like you would in Outlook, you can see when people are available and unavailable. So if I just hit send, that's going to send an invitation out to Stu, and it's also going to add that Teams link in, which allows him to join. So you can see our test 2 here. If I just jump back in, so we've now got that Teams link available to us there as well. And we've got quite a few different tabs available now. So I've got the chat tab. So if I needed to rearrange this meeting and there's a lot of people on the meeting, it could be quite a nice quick place to come in and just message with everyone who's been invited and just let them know. Files, if there's any presentations that we're going to be working on, any documents, whatever it might be, you could upload that to the meeting so that it's ready for everybody to work on during the meeting, and also gives them a bit of a chance to have a look at it before the actual event as well. Details just takes us back to our meeting details. We've looked at the scheduling assistant. I also have meeting notes. So this just uses OneNote essentially, where you can just take notes during the meeting. And then you also have a whiteboard, which we'll have a little look at a bit later on as well. But you can utilize this in the meeting. It can make it a bit more fun and interactive. So that's pretty much the meetings. You can also create Teams meetings from Outlook if you've been set up with that. So those of you that might create Skype meetings from Outlook, you'll know that you have a Skype icon. So you just click on Create New Skype Meeting. It's pretty much exactly the same for Teams. We have an icon that just says Create New Teams Meeting, and that will come into your Teams calendar as well. So that's all pretty much the same. Obviously, you can have a play around with your view. You can change your days and the work week view as well. So hopefully all pretty straightforward. So what we're going to take a look at next is the Call tab. So if I just jump down to Call. So again, this is quite dependent on how your organisation has set this up. Some organisations have a dial pad, and that allows you to make external calls, so you can actually call out to a mobile phone, as with you can in Skype as well with the dial pad. We don't currently use that at Optimum, so I can't show you that, but it works pretty much the same as it would in Skype if you currently use that. What I can do in calls is I've got my speed dial, and speed dial is essentially a nice and quick way of quickly contacting someone. So I can come here, I've essentially got my favourites on the speed dial, and I can just quickly call, video call Aisha, or give her an audio call. This is pulled through in how I've grouped up my contacts in Outlook, so it follows the same structure. And I can add people to speed dial quite easily. So if I wanted to add Mark to my speed dial, I can click on the ellipsis, the 3 dots, more actions, and add him to speed dial. And same if I wanted to remove him, it's exactly the same, more actions, remove. So it's a nice quick feature there. I've got my contacts underneath speed dial, and this just pulls through all my Outlook contacts. And again, I can just quickly chat. I can even email people from contacts here, video and audio call. I can add a new contact using the new contact button there, and just go through the fields and create them. If I click on history, that will show me the calls that I've made recently, whether incoming, outgoing, and so on. I can even click on the more options here and call them back from here as well. And then voicemail, if you have that switched on, this is where you'll come to listen to any of those voicemails. Okay. So that's pretty much the calls. The next thing I'm going to have a look at is the actual teams. So for those of you that do use Skype, so far what I've shown you has probably been fairly familiar. Teams is essentially all the new functionality that's introduced. So before we have a look at some of the functionality and features, we'll just go through what is a team and what's a channel. So here you can see I'm a member of 4 different teams now. My team, Dairy Foods, Running Club, and Self-Isolation Top Tips. So a team is essentially a group of people. So you could have a team for projects you're working on, for different departments, different offices, however you want to group up those people. Then within a team, so we have a look at my Dairy Foods team, which is a project I'm working on. I have different channels. So I've got a general channel, an issues channel, any issues with this project would go in there. I've got a manufacturing channel, so anything to do with the manufacturing deliverables I've got, pop in there. And I've got a training channel as well. And you can see this has got a lock next to it, so that indicates to me that it's locked down. Only certain people that I allow can view this channel. So with a team, you can set up your teams to either be public or private. So if I select my Running Club team here, and I'll go into the General tab, in the top right you can see that I've got that organisation here. So this tells me that this group is, this team is public to my whole organisation. That means that anyone can just join this team and look at any of the posts that have been posted. Whereas if I go into my Dairy Foods team, and we'll just stick with the general, I can see that this one now says team. So this tells me this is a private team, and only the people that I accept access to or invite to the team can see the posts that have been posted. So it's important when you set up teams to think about what you want the setup to be. Do you want anyone to be able to join, or are you going to have sensitive information that you only want a few people to be viewing? So we'll have a look at some of the features within our team. So I'll stick with my Dairy Foods team, and I'll have a look at my general channel. Now most channels come with 3 default tabs, so Posts, Files, and Wiki. We're in the Posts tabs, and this essentially just allows me to post messages to everybody who's a member of this channel and team. So if I send a message here, that will go to everybody. And what's really great with the posts is that you can actually reply directly to a message. So when you've got a team with a lot of people in there, there could potentially be a lot of messages being posted. So replying directly to the message just keeps it coherent and in a thread. So I could write a message, reply there, and that now keeps it with that message, so keeps it nice and concise. What you can also do is you can mention people. So if you use Twitter, you might be quite familiar with this, but I can just mention a particular team member, and what that does is it will then notify that member that they've had a message directed at them, and then that will go into their activity tab. That's quite useful because by default all the channel notifications are set to off, so unless your team members opt into notifications, they're not going to see the odd message like that. So if you want someone to actually view this message and make sure they read it, it's quite a good idea to mention them. And I can send that there. As well as mentioning individuals, you can actually mention the whole team. So again, if you put the @ symbol followed by team, saves you having to write out the whole team name, replaces it for you, and then that will send a message to everybody who's in the team, and the activity tab will be populated. So it sends a notification out to everybody. So again, that's probably as an alternative way of sending out an email to everybody. You can do it nice and quickly directly from the team. And then underneath you've got all your different options again with GIFs and so on. You've also got this Meet Now functionality. So this essentially starts a video call with everyone who is a member of this team and channel. So again, that's quite good for a spontaneous catch-up call. We then have our Files tab. Let's select this. So this will essentially allow you to upload documents that everyone can collaboratively work on at the same time. So this document here is being uploaded. That means anyone who's a member of this team and channel can open up that document and edit it in real time. So if I just wait for it to load up properly. There we go. As soon as I hit close, that's going to save my change, so that when anyone else is in that document, they will now see that change. To upload a document, you can just click upload here, and then if you wanted to download that document, just select it and hit download. So that's quite useful. You've got the Wiki page as well. So Wiki is really good at just holding information. We found this is quite useful. Rather than sending out emails, lots of different emails to the whole group, now we can just upload it to this Wiki. So you can see here we've got some key contacts. We can upload those here. This is just an example. Obviously you could store this however you wanted to. And we've also got some useful resources. Again, typically I'd probably email this out to everyone on the project, whereas now I can upload it here and it's easy for them to find. It's quite nice to navigate as well. And then I've also got this project planner. So I've actually added this project planner. And if you wanted to add a planner to your team or channel, you can just click on Add a Tab. And then you can see there's lots of built-in apps that you can download and add. The planner is this one here. So this is what I've done to create the new the planner. I'm just going to close that down. So I'll just demo some basic functionality of this just to make sure that you're aware that it's here. I won't go into too much detail here. But the planner essentially allows you to organize tasks and activities of both yourself and your team members. So anyone who's part of this team. I have this organized in different buckets. So I'm concerned with onboarding some new trainers, dealing with the progress, and I've got my own deliverables to look after. But if I wanted to add more buckets, I can just click on Add New Bucket here and populate the title there. Then within my buckets, I've got different tasks, and I can just click Add Task to create a task, whatever it might be. Set a due date, let's say Monday, and I can assign that task to people as well that are part of the team. So let's say I want Beth to do this task. And then once I've done that, I can click Add Task, and it's created that task there. Once created, I can go into my task. I can update different fields. I can put this as in progress. Let's put the progress icon there. Update my priority. I can add a checklist, like whatever it might be. I can show those on the card so they're visible from the main card. I can add attachments and I can add comments. So that's quite a handy feature. You can see I've got my checklist there. I can quickly mark off those checklist items directly from here. And if I close down a task altogether, complete that task, you can see that it populates down here in my completed tasks. And this is quite reversible as well. I can just select that icon and mark it as uncompleted. So this, at the moment, I'm in the group by bucket view. You can quite easily change that view as well. I won't go through all of these, but just give you an example here. We'll look at progress. So this then organizes all your tasks in not started, in progress, and completed. So then you can quickly pick up and drop a task if you've started it into in progress. So that's quite nice as well, keeps track of how you're doing, and you can see the bucket name is now displayed on the task as well. You can further filter this, so if I click on filter, let's say I wanted to have a look at just my tasks. So under assignment I can select my name, and now I don't have to view everyone else's. It's a nice clearer, cleaner view as well. So also quite good if you're a manager and you're trying to keep track of individual members' tasks. That's quite a nice way of filtering it as well. You can just clear that as well. And as well as the different views and filters, you have these boards here. So we're on the board view. If I click on charts, this is essentially like a dashboard view. So it gives me some nice overviews, snapshots of the progress. I can see the status. I can view it by bucket and view priority. And it also shows me by member as well. So I can start to see who's got tasks and whether they've completed them or whether they're not started. And then finally I've got this schedule. And this essentially opens up your tasks in a calendar view. So if you set an assigned date, that will be displayed there. And this can be quite useful whether you're in a project meeting and you just want to quickly assign a task to a member of your team. You can just click on add task. It'll automatically assign the due date and you can add the task there. You can assign it. Again, we'll assign it to Beth. And then I can just add that task in there. So again, nice, quick, easy way of adding tasks. Sorry. So that's kind of an overview of the teams and channels. If you have created a team and you want to update your team and you want to edit manage the features, if you click on more options against the team, you can go into manage team. And then from here you can see who the owner is and you can view your members as well. You can quite easily add a member here, or you can add a member here as well. So you've got a lot of different settings here that you can go and have a look at and have a play around with. You've got the channels as well, so I can quickly jump in to see what the channels are, whether they're available to me, whether they're available to everybody in the team, or whether I've locked it down to certain people within the team. So you might want to do that, for example, if you had a finance department team, and within that team you had a general channel that was available to all the finance employees, but then you might also have a management channel which you just want available to the finance management team. So you might want to lock that down to certain people within the team. And if you want to add a channel as well, you can also do that from here, add a member. You can leave the team from here as well. So this is where you really manage the team particularly. And same goes for channels. If I select the general channel here, click on more options, I can manage my channel directly here. I can also turn on my channel notifications. So earlier on I told you that you had to opt in for notifications. So if this is a really important channel for me and I need to get informed about updates, click channel notifications, and then here where it says all new posts, I can update that accordingly. So lastly, with the Teams functionality, I'll just quickly show you this join or create team. Again, depending on how your organization have set up your permissions, you might not all be able to create teams. But if you want to join a public team, so that's a team that's available to everyone in the organization, just hit join team. Typically your public teams are displayed here, or you can search for them using the search bar, and then you just click on join team and it will be available along the left hand side. If you want to join a private team, you'll have to ask someone to either add you in directly, or they can send you a link to the team and you request access. The project owner can either then accept that access or reject it. And then to create a team, you just click on your cog here, and you can click create a team. You can either create one from scratch or you can create an existing copy. So if you've got lots of different departments, they might all follow the same sort of team and channel structure. So you can copy those over. Saves a bit of time. So that's your Teams functionality. Again, there's lots of different things that you can have a play around with, so do have a look. A few other things I wanted to show you is your Files tab. So this is linked up to your computer, or as we've set it up, our OneDrive. So I'm just going to come off there. So again, depending on how your organization have set that up, you can access documents on your computer, OneDrive. We then have our activity tab, and this is where it's essentially a news feed. So like in Twitter, like in Facebook, I can see here that Beth has liked one of my posts. She's reacted to something here. So she's created and added me to a group. So I can keep updated here as well. And then I have this apps button here. So this is where I can come in and add in lots of different Teams apps. So like I mentioned, Teams has loads of different apps available, like add-in applications. So please have a look through. There might be some really good productivity ones available to you. There might be some really good apps that you can have a look for training purposes. So we recommend having a little look and having a play around with those. And then finally, you have your help button. So this is really great for just general how do I questions, training, what's coming new. So let's have a look on the training. Here you'll have lots of different videos available to you, really short, snappy and concise videos. How to hide a show and hide a channel, whatever it might be, you can have a look down there. And again, you can search, so if you've forgotten how to, let's give it basic, how to chat, type that in and it comes up with pretty accurate articles. And then it's essentially just like a reference guide here, so that's really handy. So do have a look at that. If you have any queries, that's generally quite a good place to go to first of all hit that off. So I'm just going to open up the chat and we'll have a quick look to see if we've got any questions.
Hi there, it's Stuart here. I'm also on the call with Olivia, so we're just going to touch upon a couple there that were unable to answer within the chat.
Okay.
So Olivia, the first question is from Talisa. She has asked, how do I add files that will continue to update in Teams when they're updated in SharePoint?
So that's all really dependent on how you've set up your policy, how your IT guys have set it up. Sometimes you can hook up the files directly to your OnePoint and Share Drive link, and then you'll just keep sharing the same link. So I think that's more a question that you should probably take internally and ask how they've set that up for you.
Okay, great. So I guess that's dependent upon organisation policy, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, a second question we've got from Akmal has asked, can I check colleagues' calendars within an organisation a little like you would in Outlook?
So the only thing that I'm aware of currently is the scheduling assistant. I don't believe you can add a calendar, but I think that's something I'd probably have to double check and potentially get back to you. So you have got the scheduling assistant here, where you can view when people are available and not available. But I don't know of a direct function of adding people's calendars to Teams like you can in Outlook.
Okay, great.
Okay. But we can double check that one.
Perfect, sounds good. Mark Stockton has asked, how do you lock down a channel to selected members of a team? So I guess that's just about creating a private channel.
Yeah, okay. So within Dairy Foods here, I can create a new channel. So add a channel. And let's just call this tests for now. And then you see this privacy option here. So it defaults to standard, so that's where anyone in the team can view that channel. But I can update it to private. And if I hit next, it will allow me to then start adding the team members. So let's say I want Beth in this one. I just want this to be me and Beth. So click add. And then hit done. And you can now see it's got that padlock there, so you know it's not viewable to everyone within the team, and that's now just locked down to channel.
Great, thank you very much. And then I believe we've got one final question, which was from Diane, who has asked, can recent chats be deleted?
Okay, so you can delete chats you've sent. So if I just jump into this conversation with Beth here. So if I just right click my chat, if I hover over it, click on the more options, I can delete that chat. I can't delete other people's chats. You see here, you can't delete anything anyone else has sent. I don't believe you can delete a direct chat from here, but you can hide it.
Great.
Any other questions?
We've just had one final one from Alexandra, who's asked, is there a difference between Teams for web from web or installed locally? So I don't believe there is there?
I don't think so. Generally, performance is a lot better if you download the desktop app. And it's quite easy to do. If you've already got a Teams access, your organization have set it up for you. Normally, you can just download it straight from within your Microsoft account. So it's probably best if you do download it.
Great. Okay, perfect. One final question from Louise, who's asked, can you hyperlink to files saved on a shared computer drive?
So, I mean, you can send, like you would in OneDrive and SharePoint, you can send file links and share access just as a message. I guess it depends on, is it how your shared network and shared drives are set up? So I guess I think that would be more of a question to your internal IT.
Yeah, great. Okay. So yeah, just so everyone is aware, there are various different configuration setups within Microsoft policies, and so there are so many configurations that you could make within Teams. Some of these are very dependent upon your company's policies, unfortunately.
Okay. Thanks, Stu. I'm going to jump back to our PowerPoint, and I just wanted to go through some upcoming features. So obviously, with everything going on at the moment, Teams usage has like skyrocketed in the last couple of weeks, and they're also starting to bring out some new features in the upcoming months and weeks. So these are a few that I've heard of, but I'm sure there's going to be some more released soon. So they're looking to release Raise Hand. Those of you that might have done some training or lots of WebEx calls, you might be familiar with the Show Hand in WebEx. Raise Hand will essentially be very similar. You'll have an icon on the bar in the call that you can click, and that will bring a little hand icon. So I, as the meeting presenter or trainer, will be able to see that Megan here needs some help. They're also looking to release pop-out chats. So if you use Skype at the moment, you'll know that you can have all your chats and different pop-ups. And a lot of people like that functionality, so they're going to bring it to Teams. So when you start to have a chat with somebody, in the top right, next to where you would share your desktop and audio call, you'll have a little pop-out icon, and then that will just bring it out into a separate window. So that will hopefully be quite helpful. And then some other features. There'll be a new quick question feature. I haven't heard too much about this and what it will entail. I'm hoping that it will make it really nice and easy for people to ask questions and for me as a trainer to see those. You'll notice as I've been training, the only real indication that I've got when I'm not in Teams that I've got question is this icon here. So I'm hoping quick question will make it a lot more obvious for me, but I haven't seen too many details about that just yet. And they're also going to release an offline mode. So this will enable you to read questions and draft your responses, and then when you do get back on the online, you'll be able to send those responses. So that might be quite good if you've got a poor reception, whatever it might be. You can draft those responses and get that out the way. You won't have to wait till you're back online. So just before I start the remote chaining, Stu, was there any other questions regarding Teams specifically before we move on?
No, we're all good.
Okay, thank you. So the last 15 minutes of this call is just looking at how we can actually use Teams, look at the functionality, and see how we can facilitate remote training. So with remote training, there are obviously a few challenges and issues that we need to overcome. In the classroom, in a physical classroom, there are a lot of visual cues that you can use as a trainer. You can see whether people are struggling using their faces. And you can also interact with participants a lot better as well, which allows people to be a bit more engaged. So typically we find that the main challenges of virtual training is understanding, engaging participants' comprehension of the topics, but also trying to engage audiences and trying to encourage them to interact and so on. So these are normally the main issues that we come across. So we'll have a look at how we can try and counteract that a little bit. So typically you'd start off your session with some housekeeping, and this is just setting the scene and managing people's expectations, as well as them providing the basic tools for them to take part in the virtual training. Now these will obviously vary depending on what you're delivering. You might not need all of these options, but typically for business systems training we would use the following. So we'd recommend that the delegates turn off their cameras. This is especially useful when you've got a lot of people on the call. If you have a lot of different faces, a lot of different backgrounds and movements, you're just adding distractions for the users to look at. On the flip side of that, though, we recommend that you always leave your video on if you are able to. And again, that just provides a face to the voice. You're providing a bit more of a connection to the trainer, and it's also something else to follow along. You're not just staring at their screen the whole time. Ask your delegates to pop their microphones on mute, just like we have done today. If they're not speaking, then we just want to cut down that background noise. I'd also recommend that as a trainer you'd use a headset if you have got one available. It just makes the audio quality a lot better, and it does a better job at cutting down background noise from your end as well. Show the delegates how they can access the meeting chat at the beginning. Some people might not be that familiar with Teams. They might not have used it very often, so it's always a great idea just to show them how to do that. And also encourage them to ask questions here as well, especially if you've got a large group. Maybe just set the expectations from the start, where they can ask questions, when they can ask them, just so it's very clear. Inform everyone of the live captions. It just allows you to be a lot more accessible. If people have got any hearing issues, then it can be really helpful for them. And if you're doing business systems training, if you've got a half day, full day course, you're probably going to include some exercises. If you're doing that, it's a great idea to tell the delegates that they may be expected to share their screen throughout the course, therefore show them how to do that. And they may also want to know how to split their screen so that they can look at your presentation, have a look at the exercises at the same time as looking at the new system. Asking delegates ahead of time that they might be sharing their screen as well tends to allow delegates to be a bit more switched on. They know they've got to pay attention. They know that their screen may be shared with the whole group. So hopefully trying to allow them to stay with us in the call. As with classroom training, we always explain the course, just setting the expectations. We'd explain the training formats. We have different recommendations for virtual training to face-to-face, and I'll run through our standard recommendation for that in a second. Explain the timings of the course, when you'll have breaks, the structure. Typically, you'd show a brief structure at the beginning as well, especially if it's like a half-day, full-day course. And if you have any training material available, just explain how and when they will get that. And again, just set the expectations for mobile phones, internet and email. We really want to discourage people from looking at these throughout the call. Obviously, as a trainer, it's hard to police and make sure that people aren't on their phone. So just politely asking everyone to pop it away or turn it off if possible. I know that's not feasible for everyone, but we're just trying to reduce the distractions here. So having a look at our virtual training structure, we recommend a 3-step structure when delivering virtual training. So we would always have PowerPoint slides to explain the business process and any terms that we're using. And we want a visual cue for any lengthy explanation we have to do. We want the users to be able to follow along on the screen as well as listen to our voice. We then follow this up with a demonstration. So then the trainer would leave the presentation, go into the business system, whatever it might be, and do some short demonstrations here. Again, we don't want them to be too long. We want the delegates to remain engaged and interested, so fairly short works quite well. And then we have the Now You Try Me section. So this is where we pop an exercise on the PowerPoint. Again, typically try and keep it within the presentation, as few screens to flip through as possible. Giving them information that they need to complete an exercise, and also provides them a bit of interactivity here. So now they can have a go themselves, have a play about, and really test what they've learned. So I'll just show you a quick example of what we would do during a course. So we've got some terms on the screen. We'd run through these. We do write them all out just so that people can follow along with our voice. So we'll explain the terminology. Here we're looking at how to raise a purchase requisition. This is new to this company, so they just want some basic terms covered off at the beginning. Then go through the process flow of how to raise the purchase rec, trying to keep it fairly animated and relevant to what you're talking about at the time. So run through the process. Once we finished all our explanation, we would then do our system demonstration. So I'd actually leave my PowerPoint, open up the business system and perform the demo. So I'd raise a purchase requisition. And then I'd come back to my PowerPoint once I've completed and ask for them to have a go. So I'm on the Now You Try slide. So I've got an exercise here giving all the information that they need to complete that exercise, any data they need, and so on. Provide any tips if it's a lengthy process, or if it's a larger group, ask them to indicate in the chat when they've finished. Once with exercises as well, another great way of keeping it interactive, if a delegate is very comfortable with it, then you could ask them to potentially demonstrate the answer. Again, getting that participation levels up a bit more, and also hoping that people remain fairly switched on if they're aware they might have to do that. So that could be another great tip as well. And then just looking at timings. So the virtual training has a slightly different timing structure to what we would expect in the classroom. So with virtual training, we'd expect to have more breaks and for longer breaks. We recommend that each training chunk is no more than an hour to 90 minutes. And again, this is trying to keep optimal concentration levels. We would also have longer breaks in between, so 30 minutes here. And that's just because virtual training can be a lot more intense. You're just staring at the screen for that full hour, an hour and a half. Whereas in a classroom, you would have the odd 5 minutes talking to a peer. You'd be able to stretch out. There's other distractions in the room which can give you a bit of a break. So we recommend having those 30 minutes to get up, be able to take their eyes off the screen and have a refresh, have a cup of tea, whatever it might be. And that hopefully then means that people are more engaged and more interested during the actual training chunks. And also, if people know they've got regular half-hour breaks, hopefully they're less likely to check their emails. They'll know that in an hour and a half, they'll be able to log those on and have a look. So again, just trying to cut down those distractions. So this is just a typical example of what we would expect to see for a day course. Obviously, this would change for half day, 2 hour, whatever it might be. And then having a look at how you can make the training interactive. So there's a lot of different tools out there. You can have a look within Teams itself. Just having a quick Google, there's loads of different tools available, and it can just think of how you can provide a bit of participation from the delegates. So you could provide a quiz. You could ask them to complete a quiz once everyone gets back from lunch, hopefully to re-engage and kickstart the session again. You could do polls. You can ask quick poll questions in the Teams chat, asking if we need to revisit a topic or what was the best feature of that last functionality you showed. There's also the whiteboard in Teams itself, and I'll just quickly demonstrate that one. So I jump back into Teams. I'm going to have to stop sharing my desktop here to share the whiteboard. So I'm just going to stop sharing. But I'm a presenter, so you're not a presenter, so you won't see this. But if I click share, when I do click share, there is an option for me to share my whiteboard, which will always be displayed to the right. So when you finish the session, if you want to create a meeting and have a go at this. And what this will do is bring up a whiteboard to everyone in the meeting, and we can all interact with that whiteboard. So we might want to do a bit of brainstorming, mind mapping, maybe draw out a process flow, ask questions. It can just be a really great way of adding a bit of interactivity to this. So now it's ready, you should all be able to draw on the whiteboard. So I could draw process flow. Feel free to draw anything on the board if you want to. And that will just populate as we go along. So you can see everyone's other drawings are starting to come up. So that can be another way of just taking a quick 2-minute break from what you're doing and just having an activity on the whiteboard. I'm just going to go back to my presentation. I'll stop sharing that.
Olivia, a couple of people were struggling to see the whiteboard. I think it's probably because it takes so long to load, doesn't it? I think when you're on a larger call such as this, I mean, we've got kind of 50, 60 people on this at some points. it can sometimes take a little while, can't it, to load that functionality?
Yeah, that's right. And especially depending on your network, my network might be a bit faster or slower compared to other people. So it might, yeah, like you said, it might take quite a while to load. So maybe better if you have smaller, 20, 25 people on the group. That might work a bit better for you. But it's something you can play around with after this call. If you go to create a meeting with someone, you can have a little play around with that. You also have certain apps within Teams that I showed you earlier, so go away, have a look at those, see how you could use those. There's probably some poll apps within there, so they can be really great. And then also just share tools that you find with your organisation. If you find a tool that's really helpful, let everyone know. Here at Optimum, we're quite big and keen on everyone sharing anything that they come across. Some people like to use online timers, and they share those tools with us. So it's a really good idea just to share what you've learned, and also you can hopefully then find out new tools from other people as well. So lastly, I just want to say thank you for attending this training session today. As a reminder, my name was Olivia, and I am a training consultant for Optimum. Thank you for your time, and we'll just have a quick last look at any questions.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just a real quick one. Mark Richards has asked about whether you can change the default settings for notifications. I've done a very quick Google mark and it doesn't seem as if that's an option just yet. It's a very heavily requested feature that, so that you can automatically default notifications to appear as opposed to automatically be off, if you see what I mean. So I believe that would probably come in a future release, would you say, Olivia?
Well, there's some notifications you can set, so it depends what notifications that article is referring to. If you click on your profile icon, you go to settings and notifications. There are certain things you can adjust.
If you're able to share your screen again, sorry, Olivia.
Yep, sorry, yeah, that would help, wouldn't it? Yeah, so if you click on your profile icon, go into settings, notifications, there are certain things you can change. It is quite limited, but you can have a look through there and see if that answers the notification one that you're looking for.
Okay, great, thank you.
It's all right.
And a couple of the people watching were asking, how do you split your screen? So if you could just very quickly show them how you drag onto one side, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so this is for Windows 10, so it will obviously vary depending what you're using. So if I just populate, got two here, I just literally drag until it comes up with this border in the middle and drop it. And then I can select the other window that I want to take up the second half of the tab screen. So that's quite handy. You can have your PowerPoint exercise on one and the system on the other.
Great, that's it for the questions. Thank you all very much for joining. As Olivia mentioned, we really appreciate your time this afternoon. We will be following up this webinar with an email to everyone who came to both this afternoon session and this morning session. And we'll try to answer any questions that we weren't able to answer during the webinars in them. Hopefully we are going to include a recording of this afternoon's webinar as well, so feel free to share that with your teams. We are a business systems end user training company, so if you do decide to roll out Teams and you would like some bespoke training delivered to your end users, then please feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much again.
All right, thank you everyone.